For centuries, humanity has been fascinated by relics of power, ancient artifacts, dazzling gems, and mysterious objects said to hold terrifying curses. From sacred temples to modern marketplaces, our desire to believe in haunted treasures has never faded, even when many are nothing more than clever fakes. But what if some of the world's most infamous cursed objects, those that terrified nations and captured headlines, were actually elaborate deceptions? In this episode, we peel back the myths and expose the shocking truth behind 10 legendary artifacts that turned out to be carefully crafted frauds. Number 10. We encounter one of Britain's most unsettling urban legends, the Crying Boy paintings. In the mid-1980s, panic swept across the United Kingdom when stories emerged that homes displaying these haunting portraits were mysteriously burning to the ground. The eerie detail that captured the public's imagination was that, amid the ashes and devastation, the image of the tearful child would always be found untouched, eerily staring out from charred walls. Newspapers fueled this hysteria, claiming fire brigades repeatedly discovered the artwork unscathed in destroyed properties. Terrified homeowners, convinced of the painting's supernatural curse, organized mass bonfires to rid themselves of the supposed jinx. However, the truth was far less mystical. The paintings were mass-produced prints created by Italian artist Giovanni Bragolin and were mounted on fire-resistant hardboard. Their survival in house fires was not due to occult forces, but rather their durable composition and strategic placement in hallways where flames rarely reached. The terrifying tales that spread through tabloids were fabricated, designed to sell papers and stir national drama. Investigators later revealed that every blaze linked to the paintings was caused by ordinary accidents: faulty heaters, grease fires, or carelessly discarded cigarettes. Yet the legend persisted, turning a cheap decorative print into one of the most famous haunted objects in modern folklore. The Crying Boy story endures today as a cautionary example of how fear, superstition, and sensational media can transform an ordinary household decoration into a cursed artifact in the public imagination. Coming in at number 9, we step into the strange saga of the Dybbuk box, a modern legend born from the internet age. This small wooden wine cabinet was presented to the world as a cursed relic containing a malicious spirit from Jewish folklore, a Dybbuk sent to torment anyone unlucky enough to possess it. The story first captured attention in 2003, when an elaborate eBay listing described how the box unleashed a series of terrifying events: sudden illnesses, foul odors, unexplained shadows, and relentless nightmares. Its chilling backstory was tied to the Holocaust, making the tale even more compelling. Soon, the story inspired books, documentaries, and even a Hollywood horror film titled The Possession. Eventually, the item landed in the hands of a paranormal investigator and now sits inside a Las Vegas museum, encased in protective glass as if it truly were a demonic vessel. But the truth behind the Dybbuk box is more fascinating than frightening. In 2021, Kevin Manis, the original seller, revealed that the entire backstory was fabricated. He had crafted the narrative as a form of interactive horror art, carving symbols on the cabinet and inventing a sinister history to engage the public in a living ghost story. The hoax spiraled beyond his control, with later owners adding their own embellished experiences, feeding the viral myth. What began as one man's creative writing experiment transformed into one of the most infamous paranormal artifacts of the 21st century. The Dybbuk box is not a demon's prison. It is proof of how internet culture, viral storytelling, and human imagination can turn an ordinary yard sale trinket into a global supernatural sensation. At number 8, we uncover the notorious tale of the Amityville Horror House, a chilling story that captured worldwide attention in the late 1970s. The saga began when George and Kathy Lutz moved into the Dutch colonial home at 112 Ocean Avenue in Amityville, New York, just 1 year after Ronald DeFeo Jr. had brutally murdered his family inside. The Lutzes claimed that within 28 days, they were driven out by terrifying supernatural events. Demonic apparitions, unearthly noises, and even green slime dripping from the walls. Their story, immortalized in a best-selling book and numerous blockbuster films, cemented Amityville as one of the most famous haunted houses in history. Audiences were gripped by terrifying imagery of cloven hoofprints in snow, glowing-eyed demons, and walls that seemed to bleed. Yet behind the curtain, investigators discovered that almost every detail was fabricated. In 1979, DeFeo's defense attorney revealed that he and the Lutzes had concocted the story over drinks, hoping to profit from the notoriety of the murders. Records showed no snowfall on the night of the alleged hoofprints. Police logs revealed the family never reported disturbances, and no subsequent owners ever experienced paranormal activity. The Lutz family, struggling financially, turned their new home's grim history into a profitable horror franchise. While millions believed the haunting, it was in reality a carefully constructed hoax that exploited a real tragedy for monetary gain. The Amityville Horror House remains infamous not because of genuine hauntings, but because it is one of the most successful paranormal frauds ever staged. A chilling reminder of how greed, fear, and fiction can blend to create a legend that feels more terrifying than the truth. At number 7, we speed into the haunting tale of James Dean's infamous Porsche 550 Spider, chillingly nicknamed Little Bastard. On September 30th, 1955, Dean's life was tragically cut short when the lightweight racing car collided head-on with another vehicle, leaving the Hollywood star dead at just 24. But the story did not end with his death. It was only the beginning of a legend that has endured for decades. Soon after, rumors spread that the wreckage itself carried a deadly curse. Mechanics and racers who salvaged parts from the car supposedly met horrific fates, including fatal crashes and devastating injuries. One story claimed that the engine, transplanted into another vehicle, caused its new driver's death. Another recounted how the twisted remains mysteriously caught fire while in storage, only to later vanish from a sealed boxcar under circumstances never explained. These bizarre tales fueled the belief that Little Bastard was not just a machine, but a vessel of misfortune. Yet the truth is less supernatural and more theatrical. Dean's Porsche was notoriously difficult to handle, an ultra-light car designed for speed, not safety. The string of tragedies attributed to it were largely the result of human error, coincidence, and sensationalist reporting. Adding fuel to the myth was George Barris, a flamboyant car customizer who had taken possession of the wreck. Known as the King of Customs, Barris shamelessly promoted the cursed narrative, touring with the remains and feeding reporters dramatic stories to keep public fascination alive. Many historians now believe even the disappearance of the car was a publicity stunt orchestrated by Barris to ensure the legend never faded. In reality, the curse of James Dean's Porsche was not born of vengeful spirits, but of human ambition, myth-making, and the public's hunger for a dramatic postscript to a young star's tragic death. Sliding into number 6 is one of the art world's most embarrassing scandals, the saga of the Etruscan terracotta warriors. In the early 20th century, the Metropolitan Museum of Art proudly announced the acquisition of 3 colossal statues: Old Warrior, Colossal Head, and Big Warrior. Believed to date back to the 5th century BCE, these terracotta masterpieces were hailed as dazzling treasures from a mysterious ancient civilization. Purchased for $40,000, a staggering sum at the time, the statues were celebrated as a crown jewel in the Met's collection, attracting awe from scholars and visitors alike. For decades, they stood as a triumph of archaeology, symbols of the museum's authority and prestige. But in 1960, cracks in the story appeared quite literally. Scientific analysis revealed traces of manganese in the glaze, a substance unknown to the Etruscans. Soon after, a sculptor involved in their creation confessed, shattering the illusion. The masterpieces had not been crafted in antiquity, but in a 20th century workshop run by the Riccardi family of Italian forgers. These artisans had fooled experts by blending authentic fragments with clever modern techniques. The revelation humiliated the Metropolitan Museum, exposing how its eagerness for prestige had blinded curators to obvious red flags. The supposed curse attached to the warriors was not supernatural doom, but professional disgrace, a reminder that pride and ambition can lure even the most respected institutions into self-deception. Today, the statues serve as cautionary artifacts, illustrating how the desire for validation can make us overlook truth in favor of fantasy. Rather than cursed relics of the Etruscans, the terracotta warriors remain as enduring symbols of human gullibility and the power of forgery to rewrite history. if only for a time. At number 5, we uncover the curious mystery of the so-called Delhi Purple Sapphire, a gemstone that carried with it a tale of doom, despair, and ruin. In reality, the stone is not a sapphire at all, but a large amethyst, yet its legend is far more glittering than its appearance. The story claims it was looted from a sacred temple of the Hindu god Indra during the Indian Rebellion of 1857. And from that moment, it supposedly brought catastrophe to all who owned it. Accounts linked the gem to financial disaster, sudden illness, and even suicide. One particularly dramatic tale described how a talented opera singer lost her voice shortly after acquiring the stone, as if the gem itself had stolen her gift. Its most famous custodian, Edward Heron Allen, a well-respected British scientist, occult enthusiast, and polymath, became so convinced of its malevolence that he locked it inside 7 nested boxes, complete with protective charms and a dire warning that it should not be opened until decades after his death. For years, whispers of its curse terrified anyone who came into contact with it. But behind the veil of mystery lies a clever fabrication. In 1972, curators at London's Natural History Museum, where the gem had been donated, discovered Heron Allen's handwritten letter detailing its supposed cursed history. Modern scholars now believe the terrifying tale was not fact, but a work of fiction created by Heron Allen himself. Known for his love of mysticism and literature, he likely invented the story to promote a short piece of fiction he published in 1921 called The Purple Sapphire. What had begun as a playful act of storytelling blossomed into a legend that outlived its author, captivating audiences for generations. At number 4, we journey into one of science's most notorious hoaxes, the tale of Piltdown Man. In 1912, amateur archaeologist Charles Dawson stunned the world when he announced the discovery of a fossilized skull and jawbone in a gravel pit near Piltdown, East Sussex. The remains were hailed as the long-sought missing link, the evolutionary bridge between ape and human. For decades, scientists and the public alike celebrated Piltdown Man as proof of Britain's place at the center of human evolution. Museums built exhibits, textbooks cited the find, and patriotic pride soared. Yet beneath the acclaim lay a dark deception. By 1949, advancements in dating methods began to unravel the fraud. The skull fragments were found to be only 50,000 years old, while the jawbone belonged not to a human ancestor, but to a modern orangutan. Careful filing of the teeth and artificial staining had been used to create the illusion of ancient authenticity. Investigators later determined that the elaborate forgery was tailored to match the scientific expectations of the time, providing exactly the kind of ancestor researchers desperately wanted to find. While the identity of the hoaxer remains debated, suspicion overwhelmingly points to Dawson, who had a track record of questionable discoveries. The curse of Piltdown Man was not a supernatural affliction, but a devastating blow to scientific credibility, exposing how bias and ambition can blind even experts. For decades, the fraudulent fossil misled research and distorted our understanding of human origins. Today, the case stands as a cautionary tale, reminding us that even in the pursuit of truth, the desire for prestige and recognition can lead to devastating lapses in judgment. At number 3, we unearth the world's most famous archaeological curse, the legend of Tutankhamun's tomb. In 1922, British archaeologist Howard Carter and his patron, Lord Carnarvon, discovered the untouched resting place of Egypt's boy pharaoh. The tomb was a breathtaking treasure trove of gold, jewels, and artifacts unseen for millennia. But soon, after its opening, tragedy struck. Lord Carnarvon died from a blood infection following a mosquito bite, and newspapers pounced on the story, declaring his death the first victim of a pharaoh's vengeful curse. Over the years, every sudden death or illness connected to the excavation was exaggerated into evidence of the supernatural. Headlines spoke of a hex placed upon intruders who disturbed Tutankhamun's eternal rest, and the idea spread worldwide, captivating millions. But beneath the sensationalism lay simple truth. There was no curse. Modern studies have shown that the death rate among those present at the opening was completely ordinary. Out of 58 individuals, only 8 died within a dozen years, with most living well into their 70s. Howard Carter himself lived until 1939, spending years inside the tomb without harm. Explanations for Carnarvon's death range from infected wounds to possible exposure to bacteria within the sealed chamber, but none involve divine wrath. The curse was a construct of the media, designed to sell papers during a time of intense public fascination with Egyptology. By sensationalizing misfortune, journalists turned a stunning archaeological triumph into a ghost story that still echoes a century later. Tutankhamun's curse was never real. It was a journalistic invention that blurred the line between history and myth. At number 2, we dive into the glittering mystery of the Hope Diamond, a dazzling 45.52-carat blue gem that has long been branded a harbinger of disaster. Its legend tells of theft from the eye of a sacred Hindu idol, a sacrilege that doomed all future owners. The stone's cursed reputation reads like a tragedy-filled epic. French monarchs Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette supposedly lost their heads at the guillotine under its shadow. Wealthy heiresses who owned it suffered ruin, grief, and misfortune. Evelyn Walsh McLean, the American socialite, endured multiple personal tragedies after purchasing it. The gemstone's reputation as a bringer of death and despair became a staple of supernatural lore. Yet the so-called curse is little more than a marketing invention. In the early 20th century, French jeweler Pierre Cartier needed to sell the diamond to McLean, who had a fascination with talismans of doom. Cartier cleverly embellished its provenance, spinning tales of desecrated idols and royal executions, transforming the gem from a luxury object into a thrillingly dangerous possession. His gamble paid off. McLean bought the diamond, and its aura of danger only increased its allure. The dramatic misfortunes connected to its owners were largely coincidental or exaggerated to maintain the story's mystique. Today, the Hope Diamond rests safely in the Smithsonian Institution, admired by millions who marvel not just in its deep blue brilliance, but at the myth that made it legendary. Its curse was never supernatural. It was a masterclass in storytelling, proving that mystery and menace can make an object far more valuable than beauty alone ever could. Finally, at number 1, we reach the most revered and debated artifact of all, the Shroud of Turin. This linen cloth, measuring over 14 feet long, bears the faint imprint of a crucified man, a haunting image that millions believe to be Jesus of Nazareth himself. For centuries, the shroud has been a cornerstone of faith for pilgrims who view it as tangible proof of Christ's resurrection. It has inspired documentaries, theological debates, and endless speculation about whether its ghostly figure was created by divine miracle. But despite its aura of holiness, scientific evidence reveals the shroud's true origins. In 1988, independent laboratories conducted radiocarbon dating tests on its fibers. The results were decisive. The cloth was created between 1260 and 1390 AD, coinciding exactly with its first known appearance in medieval Europe. Even earlier, church officials had denounced it as a fraud. In 1389, Bishop Pierre d'Arcis wrote to the Pope, declaring the shroud to be a clever forgery cunningly painted by an unknown artist, likely designed to attract pilgrims and their donations. Additional forensic studies have since found no evidence that the image could have been created by miraculous means. Instead, it bears the hallmarks of artistic technique. Yet despite overwhelming proof, millions continue to believe in its authenticity, making it one of history's most enduring relics. The curse of the Shroud of Turin is not supernatural punishment, but the eternal conflict between faith and evidence. It stands as a testament to humanity's longing for physical proof of belief, a reminder that sometimes myths endure, not because of truth, but because of the powerful hope they inspire. The stories of these so-called cursed objects remind us that the greatest curses aren't supernatural at all. They're born from human greed, ambition, and our timeless craving for a good story. From hoaxes crafted to sell diamonds to tales spun for fame or fortune, these fakes reveal how easily belief can shape reality. As history shows, the line between legend and deception is often paper-thin. Who knows, the next great curse might not come from an ancient relic, but from a viral myth waiting to capture our imaginations. If you enjoyed this journey into history's greatest fakes, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more fascinating stories. Thanks for watching.